Hi, my name is Ivan Ang, and I'm here today with Mark Bilton, a good friend of mine and someone that I highly respect. And today we're going to talk on cultural intelligence yet again. I'm going to be sharing with you, or introducing you to a number of great executives that I've come across that I believe can add significant value to the learning process that you would go through in terms of upskilling yourself on cultural intelligence, because I believe that if you can learn from others' experiences, there's so much wisdom that you can actually draw from people who have been there and done that. And one of those guys is Mark Bilton. Mark I know he's a change catalyst, and what I mean by that is that he goes into workplaces and organizations to really impact them on what they need to do to get from where they are to where they will really like to be. And there's been some major companies that he's worked for. Some of them are multinational companies, and I know that he's worked with a number of organizations now that have worldwide global teams. And I think that would be very valuable for Mark to share on some of those experiences as to what it's been like for you to work with multinational teams. So, Mark, tell me what are some of the more interesting organisations that you've worked with that have come from that have had a global team that you've had to manage?
Yeah, well, it's great to be here, Ivan. It's good to see you again. It's always a pleasure. I've worked for a number of multinational companies, led a number of multinational companies. Gloria Jean's Coffees was probably the largest one, operating in 40 countries. Mm-hmm. So a lot of cross-cultural issues around translating coffee into a lot of different cultural environments. And the Charles Parsons Group was a large textile group that operated in 6 countries and took that through a transformation over a 3-year period. But my original background was as a trader, and I used to go to the US and Europe and look at fabric trends, and then go to Asia and try and source them. And I was in my sort of mid-late 20s, and it was a great introduction to the big wide world. And I had to learn pretty quickly that not everybody operates in the same way, and that different cultures have different approaches to businesses. But it was a great learning experience, particularly in Asia, China, Hong Kong, Korea, Taiwan, Japan. It was as a younger man, it was a lot of fun and a great experience.
So that's interesting. What was it like as a younger person in Asia? I mean, Asia traditionally is very much based upon the grey hair really does matter.
Yeah.
Seniority is a big deal over there. So what was it like for you being someone in your 20s to be dealing with Asian operations?
I think if you apply basic human principles, if you are very respectful of people who are senior, and you build relationship and try to operate in a way that's genuine and authentic, I think they'll allow the foibles of youth to just be put to one side. I did travel with an older gentleman who worked for me, and that made some quite interesting, because that he would introduce me, and then they would spend the rest of the meeting talking to him. So it was a little odd. It took a little while to get used to it, but we used to tag team around things together, and we weren't too worried about the hierarchy as long as we were getting the job done.
Yeah, I think that's a valuable point for people to learn. In fact, if you are heading into a culture where that seniority is actually respected, having the right team around you
absolutely
to approach that would be very important, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that was important, particularly in the Gloria Jean's business, was that we partnered with locals to do local business. We didn't try and go into countries and operate them ourselves, and respected the importance of making sure we engage with great partners who understand the culture, have all those relationships in place. And it's horses for courses, really. I mean, the best people to operate in a country, the people who know the country really, really well, and being comfortable with that.
Did you ever find yourself getting into a tricky situation which you weren't too sure as to how to get out of, and what was that? What were those situations?
Looking back, not really. I think most things went quite smoothly. It got a little tricky dealing with some of the factories and the outbacks of China, where we were trying to negotiate, particularly if things were going wrong. But again, I'm a big believer in just being authentic and if you're basically relational, you'll respect the culture and you'll respect people and you'll endeavour to do business in the same way as you do it with anyone else, but whilst respecting the nuances of the culture.
So let's go into that point in terms of authenticity a little bit deeper. What does it mean to you to be authentic, especially in a different culture? I mean,
Sure.
we're so used to being authentic in our comfort zones, in our environment in which we live and work.
Yeah.
Outside of our comfort zone, in a different country, in a different environment, different culture, how do you display your authenticity?
Well, people are people. They like to be respected and honoured and encouraged, and that if you're mindful of another culture, if you're mindful of how other people are feeling in that environment, then you're going to do a bit of your homework. Understanding the 2 or 3 basic principles of business that are culturally important. Greetings, learning a little bit of the language enough to get by, and people respect that, I think. And if they see you're genuinely making an attempt to do the right thing and engage in the right way, then they'll forgive you for maybe not operating the way that you should clinically do in their particular culture.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people to realise that you're not expected to learn a language overnight. You're not expected to learn everything about a particular culture overnight. Because one of the more important points that we regularly tell people about is first and foremost that desire for you to want to know more about a different culture, want to know more about how they do things and what actually gets through to them. And that effort, as you mentioned, makes a big difference. And so what I wanted to know was, in terms of the learnings that the wisdom and the learning that you've been able to obtain from having worked with operations overseas, what are some of the key 2 or 3 points that you can think of that you've brought back with you?
Most of my experience has been in the Asian area, and certainly just things take time. And our Western culture is come in, this is the problem, sort it out, 1, 2, 3, very linear in that respect. And what I've found is that you need to take the time to build a relationship, take the time to show due respect, and honour the local culture by endeavouring to engage in the way that they would want to engage. And it's often around a meal, and it's you're respectful of age, and the way that you deal with problems, and not necessarily confronting them in a traditional Western way. You kind of creep up on them and you work them through, and you. But there are those differences within this. There's just great commonalities. We're all human, and a lot of our drivers are exactly the same. And plugging into those things that you have in common is important. I don't know whose idea it was that everybody in the business world should speak English. Great idea. It's a real advantage having English as your language. It's the international language of business. But taking the time to learn a few words is respectful as well.
You mentioned food, and one of the things that Mark asked me was, what are we doing in Ivan's kitchen? And this is my new studio. If you've seen any of my other videos, you would see that there's a commonality in terms of the theme that I'm trying to portray. And I shared with Mark that food is such an important aspect of people's culture. And one of the things that I find is that it breaks down barriers when you actually get into a social setting. And when you're sharing over food, you tend to relax a lot more, and the natural side of you come out a lot more. So tell me, what are some of the more interesting meals that you've had overseas?
I've had a few. When you visit the factories in China, you stop asking after a while. Fish bladders, little frogs, all sorts of weird and wonderful bits and pieces you normally throw away in our Western society. But look, it's all part of the experience, and you again, being respectful, you engage in the meal even if you're a bit suspect about what might be put in front of you. But it's an honour to sit at the table of somebody, and particularly if they've prepared the meal themselves, which I've had that honour a few times. And it's definitely an important part of everybody's culture. People build relationship around food. It's an important piece.
Yeah, and bringing that back into an organisation in terms of having dealt with other cultures and Asian cultures in particular for yourself, Mark. What does that mean in terms of understanding how that translates to the teams that you would lead in the organisations that you've dealt with, you've led, and what are some of the things that you implement or you try to instill in the thinking of organisations as part of that cultural change or that change management process that you put in place?
Yeah, look, I like leaders who have a relational style. I just think it works really, really well, particularly in cross-cultural situations. And encouraging people to prep before they go. I mean, you need people on your team who do have cultural intelligence, as you call it. I think it's a great way of describing it. That they've got the awareness, they've got the experience, they have some connection with the culture, whether that's learned or whether they've been brought up in that environment. And as I said before, horses, of course, it's people who are well prepared, understanding cultural nuances, and are respectful of people in general.
Great. So that's one of the things that I want to finish off on today. It's not necessarily that you need to have a high level of understanding what I'm trying to say is that you don't necessarily have to have come from a particular culture in order for you to elevate or to increase your cultural intelligence of how to deal with other cultures. And I think it's the collective, that desire for the entire team in your organisation to make sure that you're all collectively looking at ways to increase your cultural intelligence, take advantage of the great knowledge that's available to you within your team, and also at looking at ways of obtaining that information from others that you may want to bring into your team as well, so that you collectively can make such a great difference and break through to either markets that you're trying to actually get in front of, or build those culturally diverse teams, because we know that the people that we're recruiting now, the talent, the people that's coming on board now are getting more and more culturally diversified.
Absolutely.
So knowing how to work with these people, these highly talented people, and retaining them over the long term, and making use of their know-how, their wisdom, and their knowledge is going to be very important.
It is. I mean, we live in a multicultural society. The world's very small. Country boundaries have pretty much disappeared, and the importance of being able to have a cross-cultural team that's well prepared, functioning, helping each other is really important.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mark. And that's all we have time for today. And stay tuned for another episode in the not too distant future, where I'll be interviewing more leaders on their experiences with cultural intelligence. And I look forward to seeing you real soon.